A day in the history of sports. Just before the Milwaukee Bucks were set to play Game 5 of a first-round playoff series against the Orlando Magic, Bucks players decided they would not play in protest of the shooting of Jacob Blake. Magic players were warming up. The Bucks never took the floor. That began talks between the players' union and the league and eventually prompted all of the games of yesterday to be postponed. Here was Michael Wilbon on PTI.
It's so difficult, and the point of view can be different from person to person, but the first goal is stop killing people. And Tony, I told you all spring, I am not singing Kumbaya. I don't believe that the country has made a turn. I don't, because people are still getting shot. When people are not shot anymore, then I'll say, okay, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But I told you all spring, I'm cynical about this. This is why. Kenosha, Wisconsin is why.
Richard Jefferson and Stephen A. Smith are with me here, and if there's one thing I know all three of us share, it is enormous respect for Michael Wilbon. And Stephen A., there is one big question I want to ask you, but before I do, I just would like to get your thoughts today. As we have seen yesterday, a day unlike any we've ever seen before, and we don't yet know what today will bring. What thoughts are first and foremost on your mind today?
Well, my thoughts are I'm proud of the players for taking the stance, taking the stance that they've taken. In an effort to bring attention to the plight that the African-American community faces. The NBA is made up of a league at least 75% black, and on far too many occasions, the impression has been, at least from the outside, entertain us, shut up and dribble per se, and go to hell home and be happy with what you have. There are so many people in America that treat these guys like they should be grateful, and it's not that we shouldn't be grateful. It's that they work their tails off for it. They put their feet to the pavement. They went on their grind. They did everything that they could to earn what they have. And they come from communities that are voiceless, people that are disenfranchised, that are marginalized, that are minimized on so many levels throughout American society, in the workplace, in the schools, and beyond. And as a result of that, what do? They come home to these individuals that are subjected to this kind of discrimination, these kind of behaviors, this kind of prejudices, and they have to listen to it, and then they have to endure certain experiences themselves. They see rules are a little bit different for white coaches than it is for black coaches. They see rules are a little bit different for white executives than it is for black executives. They see the paucity of black ownership in the NBA and throughout major professional sports. And they say, this is what we're dealing with. And that is enough in and of itself. But then to see people shot in cold blood, like dogs in the street. You see a George Floyd having an officer kneel on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. In the last 2.5 minutes, George Floyd wasn't even responsive, and he still wouldn't take his knee off of his neck. We saw Walter Scott shot in the back 8 times. We've now seen Jacob Blake with his kids in the car shot in the back 7 times. We've seen Philando Castillo shot after informing a cop, I have a firearm in the glove compartment. He's in the car with his girlfriend sitting next to him and his child in the back seat, and the officer still shot him. It doesn't matter where you are. Of course, they brought up Breonna Taylor, who was in a home, a wonderful young lady, age 26, with a whole life ahead of her, and she gets blown away by law enforcement officials. There are no arrests. There's no indictment. There are no charges. And then, of course, last but not least, you had Milwaukee yesterday with the Milwaukee Bucks. Why? Because the attorney general, the lieutenant governor, and the governor of Wisconsin appeared to be dragging their feet, and they said enough is enough. We have to do something. There's an inordinate amount of pressure that is placed on the shoulders of these athletes, not just because of themselves, but because of the communities from whence they come. And you have people speaking, pleading with them to help. And remember what I told you before, Greenie, a white man comes to work with a job to do. A black person comes with a responsibility. Make sure you do this. Make sure you say that. Please don't please touch on this. Trayvon Martin was not a sports story. I could not walk a block in an African-American community throughout this country and not hear, Stephen A., you got to bring up Trayvon Martin. And it was not a sports story. Why? Because I'm a voice. And the voiceless were crying out for those from our community to give a voice to them. That is what we deal with every single day, which is why Charles Barkley said it is exhausting being black at times. But the bottom line is we are here. We are here for a reason, and we can't be tired even when we are tired, because the fight never, ever ends. And it's the only way to survive, to continue fighting for what's right and what is just. And that's what we're looking at right now. The NBA may not be the culprits per se, but they are a part of the society that plays a big role in being a culprit towards a disenfranchised community in this nation. Props to the NBA for having an elevated level of sensitivity and doing their part in assisting the players and bringing attention to these things. But the players are saying it was long overdue. A, the work is not done. B, and C, don't look at us like we're the problem. No, we're highlighting the problem, and we need all the help we can get.
You did. You said that to me probably 10 years ago on Mike and Mike, and I've never forgotten that thought. Richard, you were one of those players very recently. The pressure that Stephen A. is talking about, how would you describe that? Could you give an illustration of ways in your life that you felt that pressure while you were playing and that you imagine the players feel it now?
Well, you do. You have to speak out. There's always that survivor's remorse. There is the don't forget where you came from. You have all of this. My father, was murdered just 2 years ago due to gun violence. Gun violence is a serious issue in our community. And on top of that, how it's policed and how we are policed in our communities is a big issue. And so when I listen to Stephen A. talk about being the voice for the voiceless, that is what the responsibility that these athletes are feeling. On top of having to perform, you look at Paul George, whose head and heart could be heavy, dealing with anxiety, dealing with a bit of depression. And then on top of it, he's got to go out there and perform while away from his children, while away from his loved ones. And then we're going to criticize him for his performance. That is a lot. That is a lot to deal with right now. But we don't have any excuses for him. Well, maybe his shoulders bother him. Oh, he's not playoff P. No, he's dealing with a lot, as are a lot of people in this country. So, you can see what these players are dealing with. You can understand the stress and to be examples, to be leaders, and they have led. And the NBA has given them an amazing platform, and the players have used the platform combined with the NBA to bring attention and to raise awareness. But ultimately, these players, only they can decide what they want to do and what they feel is best. And I'll say it again, if they choose to play, I will fully support them. If they choose to not play, I fully support them. The one thing that I will say is I was on a text chain with a bunch of guys that I played with, and I was like, people ask me all the time if I miss playing basketball. And the answer is no. I was fortunate. I played long enough. I was good. But this is a time right now where I wish I was still playing so I could be on the line with my brothers and so many of them that are still in the middle of this battle.
So well said. Stephen A., I've been waiting all morning long to ask you this because I really would like to know your opinion. If the players' singular goal here, their primary focus is to effect the most possible and effective change, most impactful change they can regarding issues of social justice and racial equality, do you believe they can best accomplish that by continuing to play or by essentially boycotting the remainder of the NBA postseason?
I think they can continue. They can do it by continuing to play. That's my personal opinion. I'm not advising them to take one position one way or the other because I'm going to support whatever position they take as long as it's a collective decision where they take into account all the necessary risk and still say this is what we want to do. No matter what that decision is, they're my brothers and I'm going to stand by them. It's just that simple. But I do think it's important to recognize what the risks are. And when we sit up here and we think about what's going to transpire, we have to understand something here, Greeny. You have a situation where you have the NBA looking at them. I had somebody in the league yesterday tell me this. This is last night at about 1 in the morning because I've been up since 4 in the morning until 4 in the morning, talking to numerous owners, executives, coaches, players, etc. And here's what one individual in the league said to me. Doc Rivers' speech was so profound, so special, so riveting, so resonating. Millions of people saw it. If the games weren't being played and Doc Rivers had just taken a selfie saying the same thing, maybe hundreds would have seen it. The fact of the matter is the point that was being made is that his team playing and participating in this bubble has elevated the level of pro for the players. The vast majority of them, LeBron doesn't need it, but most of them do. And as a result of it, we believe The NBA is having a profoundly positive impact on what the agenda for the NBA players are. Now, obviously, you can listen to something like that and you can say, okay, you're the NBA, you spent about $200 million in the bubble. You had already lost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. You can talk to the players about how they'll lose hundreds of millions of dollars in player salaries alone if the games don't continue, how there's close to $1 billion at stake if there's no NBA finals on ABC because of the league's television contract with the network. You can point to the billions that are going to be lost and say that might be motivation for the owners or league executives and what have you saying such things. My point is, are they telling the truth or are they not? And if they are telling the truth, and you as players of dollars, because a collective bargaining agreement is going to reopen and what have you, those are risks that you have to take into consideration before you make this decision. We have to remember, they did not come back to play in the bubble just because they love the game of basketball. They came back to protect the vast majority of the collective bargaining agreement they had reached with the league a couple of years ago. Because had they not done so, the league gets to rip up the CBA, come back to the table, taking into account the losses accrued and the losses they're projecting to accrue, and saying to the players, we partners, right? So we lost all of this. It could be $4 billion, it could be $5 billion. Where's your stake that you're willing to give back? Because you got to give something back. This is the kind of stuff that led to Chris Paul, LeBron James, and everybody else in between, the Andre Iguodala's of the world and others who are on the executive committee and stuff. This is what led to them electing to come back to play. They have to remember that when they're sitting down to make a decision going forward. And if they say, we know, we got it, but we're still willing to sit out for the rest of this season to make that point, not only do I think that they would obviously be supported by the society